There comes a moment when the lie no longer holds, not because someone exposes it, but because your soul refuses to repeat it. You look in the mirror and find no defense left. This is where Shakespeare ends, not with rage, not with longing, but with self-betrayal. He swore she was kind. He swore she was faithful. He swore she was love. And every time he did, he broke a part of himself, because he knew, and still he swore. In Will in the World, Stephen Greenblatt describes this not as a poetic closure, but as Shakespeare's undoing. Not theatrical, but internal. The final sonnet is not a dramatic farewell to the Dark Lady, but a quiet collapse under the weight of sustained self-deception. She lied, but he lied harder, to stay close, to stay needed, to keep pretending it was still love. In Elizabethan England, to swear an oath was no small thing. It was sacred, not just a promise, but a covenant of the soul. To break it was to fracture the self. And here, in his final sonnet to the Dark Lady, Shakespeare confesses, "I broke them all." He lied to others. He lied to her. But most of all, he lied to himself. At the time of writing this sonnet, likely around 1604, England was in a moment of transition. Queen Elizabeth was dead. King James had taken the throne. The age of illusion was giving way to a harsher truth. Shakespeare, now in his 40s, had seen success, but also loss. The theatres had closed from plague. His son Hamlet had died years earlier, and the public mask of fame could no longer silence the private voice of guilt. According to the Cambridge Companion to Shakespeare's poetry, this sonnet is not poetic embellishment, but emotional collapse, a brutal self-indictment. He writes as a man who was kept lying out of need, not love, out of fear, not passion. This is no longer seduction. It is survival and self-erasure. He says, "I have sworn thee fair," knowing it was false. He needed her to be true, so he shut his eyes and made his tongue a traitor. This is not about heartbreak. It is about moral erosion. About what remains when even your own words betray you. He knew she was not true, but he needed her to be. So, he silenced his sight and rewrote the truth with every vow. He says, "I swore you were fair, knowing I was blinding myself." This is not about heartbreak. It is about moral erosion.
In loving thee thou knowest I am forsworn, but thou art twice forsworn. To me, love swearing. In act thy bed vow broke, and new faith torn. In vowing new hate after new love bearing. But why? Of 2 oaths breach do I accuse thee, when I break 20. I am perjured most. For all my vows are oaths but to misuse thee, and all my honest faith in thee is lost. For I have sworn deep oaths of thy deep kindness, oaths of thy love, thy truth, thy constancy, and to enlighten thee gave eyes to blindness, or made them swear against the thing they see. For I have sworn thee fair, more perjured I, to swear against the truth so foul a lie.
He doesn't defend himself. He doesn't blame her anymore. He names the truth, and it destroys him. This is no longer about betrayal. It's about what he sacrificed to stay in love. Not just his honesty, but his clarity, his compass, his worth. He sees her clearly now, and sees himself even more. In Shakespeare and the Poetics and Politics of Relevance, this sonnet is described not as literature, but as exposure. A rare moment when poetry stops trying to beautify the wound and begins to disinfect it. He writes with a kind of trembling mercy, mercy for the man he was, and for the man he became, trying not to lose her. There is no redemption in this sonnet, no resolution, only the echo of all that's been lost and all that was never truly had. This is not the poet triumphant. It is the poet honest. And now, the sonnets close, not with harmony, not with healing, but with truth, unvarnished and unforgiving. He loved, he lied, and he paid the price of both. But silence cannot be the end. Because where Shakespeare stops, another poet waits, with different words and a fire of his own. A man who wrote not from palaces, but from ports, not from courts, but from kitchens and battlefields. A poet of salt and bread, of nakedness and revolution. Where Shakespeare burned with shame, Neruda burned with hunger. One wrote of shadows on marble, the other of fingerprints on flesh. But they share one truth. Love ruins us, and saves us, and ruins us again. Pablo Neruda, the poet of earth and flesh. Coming next, in Enlighten My Silence.